Hello 3D fans and welcome back to my channel. As you may have noticed, there were no new videos on my channel for about a month, and that was because I attended Inktober. Some of you may know Inktober. It's an event where you do one ink painting or other painting every day all through October from 1 to 31, and in some years I do that also, but with renders. And since I rendered one render every day, I had not much time for videos for this channel. I will give you a link in the video description where you can see the renders I did for Inktober, or Rendertober as I call it this year. Okay, but now to today's topic. Today I will show you an extension for Blender that's called Modern Primitive, and that is something really cool. And you all know the primitives that you can add in Blender, the cube of course, and the cone. Let's move the cube out of the way and you see the cone. That's nothing new. And since I come from Cinema 4D, I found the primitives always a little lacking in Blender. There was no capsule, right? And there was no tube. And also the handling of primitives in C4D was easier and more user-friendly. But with Modern Primitive, this is solved, and I really hope that this extension will become the standard in Blender. And why is that? And that I will show you now in this video. I add a mesh, and after you installed the add-on in the usual way, you see a new menu entry, and it's called Modern Primitive. And here you see basically nearly the same objects you see in the old Blender objects primitive menu. But now I will show you the difference, and that is a big difference, and it's just great. Okay, let's start with the cube. You see a cube, and you see immediately that there are additional handles here. The gizmo is different, and there are these circles. You can scale the cube in every direction, and you always notice it may be a little small, but you have measurements. You can see while dragging how big the cube in the direction is that you drag. That's a big help in my opinion. And what are these circles for? The circles are for subdividing the face. If I rotate it, you see here we get subdivides. And the more you rotate it, the more subdivides you get on that face. And the same here. There are two rings on the top side. One is only for top. You cannot see that very good. I will rotate the cube a little bit. The outer one is for all sides, and the inner one is for those sides. Okay, that's different from what I expected. But you can see what this thing does. You have options to scale the cube as you would normally have, but you can see the measurements of the cube, and with those rings you can try it yourself. You will figure out how this works. You can subdivide the sides of the cube. And maybe I should have prepared for this video a little better. But let's get to the next mesh primitive. That's a deformable cube. That's similar. And the only difference I noticed was that I can drag to the sides where I want to scale it, and the subdivision handles are missing. And let's get to the next object. That is the UV sphere. And here we also have these rotating, these circles in the object, and those are, of course, you guessed it, to subdivide it easily. You can rotate as long as you want and as many subdivisions you want, and you can see it says 64, and now we have 64 subdivisions, and we can do the same for vertical. And rotate, we can get away with a few less, let's say 38. And now you have a high-res sphere. Shade Smooth does not work. Why does Shade Smooth not work? You can, there's a setting in the extension settings, so it does work, but the reason for this is that actually this UV sphere, if we go to modifiers, is an object node, geometry node. And thus, after you have created the sphere with the faces you want, you could apply the geometry node modifier. And now you have a single object without geometry nodes, and now you can shade this smooth. Okay. The next one is the IcoSphere. Here you can just scale it, and you have some more handles. Here is one handle, and you can subdivide the IcoSphere with it. That is all around. You don't have multiple handles for the sides. It makes no sense with an IcoSphere or IcoSphere. And that's it already for the IcoSphere. And the next one is a QuadSphere. It's another variation of a sphere that has a different topology. And here we also have additional handles. We have this one for size, and we have this one to subdivide it. Oh, nice, very nifty. And let's get to the next one. The next one is the cone. And you may already guess what happens here. We have the lower size and we have the upper size. And you can, of course, make this pointy. And you can add vertical subdivisions. And you can, with the outer ring, if I remember correct, right, you can add these subdivisions. And with the blue ring on top, you can add subdivisions to the top face. And if you rotate it, you will notice you get the same on the bottom face. As I said, this add-on is really nifty, and it makes creation of parametric objects real easy and user-friendly. Okay, let's get rid of the cone. And let's get to the cylinder. Nothing new here. You have the same controls we already know from the other objects. You can do horizontal and vertical subdivisions. You can scale that thing, and you can scale it vertically, and always you get the information of the measurements of the size of the object. The grid. The grid is basically a plane, and you can subdivide the plane. Cannot see this very good. I will rotate it. You can subdivide the plane, and you can also subdivide here in one direction and I guess in the other one. Right. So you can unevenly spaced rectangles on the grid. The Torus is another object that you know from Blender, and the handling and using concept is always the same. If you understood how this works, you can easily apply this to every of these objects. We can subdivide and we can subdivide, and we have two handles here to change the ring size, the major ring size and the minor ring size. Okay. And let's add another one. Now it's getting interesting because the tube is an object that is not in the standard primitives of Blender, and I missed it sorely when coming from Cinema 4D because I used this a lot. And of course the handling is the same. You can subdivide it and you can scale the outer and the inner radius, and you can somewhere, the blue one, you can scale the height, and with the ring here you can subdivide vertically. And that's really great. That was one I missed very much, and now it's there and it's great. Okay, it gets more interesting still. We have the gear. With the gear, you may have guessed it, you can create gears. And the principle is the same. You can subdivide it. And with the outer handle, you can scale the whole thing. And with the inner handle, you can scale the inner ring. And then is the aqua or whatever that color is handle, you can scale the gear ring. And of course, you can change the height. And interesting, the rings around the gear, if you rotate them, this is one, and then is the green one. Here you can change the, I think it's called taper, if I'm correct. And the outer one, you can subdivide and make the teeth of the gear round. That's a really great thing, and I like it very much. So that was it for the gear, and we still have two more. The spring, of course, brings you a spring. Let's scale this a little, and we have an upper rotation and we have handles to the side. The vertical handle scales it vertically, and here you can scale the upper radius of the spring, and here you can scale the radius of the spring itself. And here's another handle where you can scale the lower radius of the spring. And what was this for? Yeah, the rotations. The one above is for the rotations, and then is one left here, and that's for the subdivision of the spring itself. That's really great and very nifty. And let's get to the last new modern primitive, that is the capsule also an object that is in Cinema 4D for ages and was not present in Blender, and now we have one. You can scale it vertically, you can add vertical subdivisions, and you can add horizontal subdivisions, vertical subdivisions in, yeah, you know what I mean. And here you can also add subdivisions to make it more round in the upper and lower round areas. Okay, and that was it already. You can see that this add-on modern primitive helps a lot in creating primitives. You can just parameterize them, you can change them in the object itself. You do not have to go to any parameter window where you have to set the parameters. You can set the parameters directly on the object, and that is really great. And that is a very, very big improvement on usability in Blender, and I really hope that they will make this the standard for creating primitives. And of course, in addition, there are now primitives that were not there in the past, and especially like the tube and the capsule, because I miss them coming from Cinema 4D. Okay, and that was it for today. You can find this add-on in the official Blender extensions repository, and I will of course put a link to it in the video description. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.